My name is George. I'm 84 now, and most days I feel peaceful. But not long ago I wasn't sure I wanted to wake up at all. 7 years ago I lost my wife, Ellen. We were married for 49 years. She passed away quietly in her sleep, just 1 month before our 50th anniversary. I remember that morning like it's burned into my skin. I woke up expecting coffee and her soft humming in the kitchen. But the house was silent. Too silent. At first everyone told me to take it easy. "You need time, George," they said. But time did the opposite. It didn't heal, it hollowed. Each day stretched longer than the one before. I stopped answering calls. I forgot to eat sometimes. I started sleeping in the living room because our bedroom felt too full of ghosts. By the end of that year I was 15 pounds lighter. My blood pressure shot up. I'd get dizzy just from standing up too fast. My doctor ran some tests and said I was on the edge of everything. Pre-diabetes, pre-hypertension, pre-depression, if there is such a thing. But what hurt most wasn't physical. It was the slow, steady feeling that I was fading. I'd sit on the porch and feel like the world was happening without me, like I was left over, waiting. Some people call this aging, but I don't think that's what it was. The truth is, I wasn't broken. I was untended. I'd stopped caring for myself. Somewhere in all the grief and silence, I'd started treating my body like an old machine, one that had served its purpose and was now just idling until the end. I believed that healing could only come from outside. A new prescription, a surgery, a better insurance plan. But when nothing helped, I began to wonder, what if the thing I needed wasn't another doctor? What if what I really needed was to stop abandoning myself? That thought came to me one night. I hadn't eaten all day. I'd watched the sun go down without turning on a single light in the house. I was lying on the couch in the dark, still in the clothes I'd slept in. My chest felt tight. Not a heart attack, but like my spirit had curled up small inside me. And then, for no reason I can explain, I whispered, "I'm still here." It didn't fix anything, but it opened a door. I didn't want to stay in that version of myself anymore. I didn't want to go the rest of my life feeling like a shadow in my own home, but I also knew I couldn't change everything overnight. I was 77, not 27. I didn't need a transformation. I needed recovery, quiet, slow, daily repair. That's when I decided to try something different, not big changes, not some miracle plan, just 5 small things I would do each day, not to chase youth, but to meet myself where I was and say, "I'm still here, I still matter." These weren't fancy. Some took less than 3 minutes. One of them I did without leaving bed, but they became my rescue rope. Brick by brick, they pulled me back to life. And today I want to share them with you, not because I think I have answers, but because I've walked through the dark, and I know the way back is quieter than you think. It doesn't begin with effort. It begins with remembering that your body isn't just surviving. It's still listening, still waiting for you to come home. Let's begin. I wasn't always like this. Most of my life I was the strong one. I built houses for a living, carried lumber on my shoulders well into my 60s, fixed roofs, poured concrete. My hands stayed calloused even after I retired. I was the guy people called when something broke. But inside, I didn't pay much attention to what was cracking in me. I ate what filled me, not what nourished me. Sleep was for when the work was done. Movement was measured in steps between the truck and the job site, not intentional care. And emotions? They were for later, always later. My wife balanced me. She reminded me to take my vitamins, kept track of our meals, dragged me to walks after dinner. Her presence made it easy for me to pretend I was healthy just because I wasn't sick. But after she passed, the structure of my life collapsed. The routines, the conversations, the gentle nudges, all gone. I didn't realize how much of my well-being had been borrowed from her. Without her, my body stopped feeling like mine. I moved slower. I forgot words. My hands trembled more often. I didn't recognize myself anymore. And worse, I didn't want to. You might assume that grief was the only thing weighing me down. But in truth, it wasn't just the loss. It was the years of unattended fatigue, the slow damage from habits I never questioned, the fact that I had never truly learned how to care for myself outside of work. I thought, is this just how it ends? You lose someone, you lose yourself. I now know that's a lie many older adults carry quietly, that health is something you had, not something you can build again. That vitality belongs to the past, that slowing down means giving up. But here's the truth I discovered the hard way. Aging isn't the enemy. Abandonment is. I had abandoned my body in grief, abandoned my strength to the idea that it was too late, that I was too old to matter. But when I said those words, "I'm still here," something shifted. I began asking myself small, strange questions. What if I took care of myself like someone I loved? What if I moved not to stay fit, but to remember I still can? What if food wasn't just comfort, but repair? What if breath was more than air, but a signal? What if I stopped fearing sleep and started preparing for it? And from those questions I found new rituals, not big ones, not impressive ones, but deeply human ones. You see, I didn't become a new person. I returned to the one I'd forgotten, the one who used to rise early because mornings meant something, the one who used to whistle while working, the one who knew how to pay attention, first to lumber and beams, and now to lungs and balance and the sound of his own heartbeat. I'm not special, I'm not rich. I don't take supplements that cost more than my grocery bill. I still live in the same house. Same porch, same garden patch Ellen planted back in '92. But something has changed. I don't wake up dreading the day anymore. I wake up curious. My legs don't ache like they used to. I haven't needed antibiotics or a pain pill in years. I sleep like someone who's forgiven himself. I eat like someone who wants to keep showing up. And I walk every day, not to arrive anywhere, but to stay in motion. So no, I didn't reinvent myself. I recovered myself. And that's what I want to offer you today. Not advice from a guru, not a health plan from a clinic, but a path back to your own strength, one quiet step at a time. Because whether you're 60, 75 or 90, your body is still listening. And it's asking you gently, are you still with me? Let's answer yes. It didn't happen all at once. There wasn't some dramatic collapse, no sirens, no trip to the ER, just small things easy to ignore on their own. But stacked together, they started forming a wall between me and the life I used to know. It began with my steps. At first I noticed I had to hold the railing going down the porch steps. Then I found myself pausing halfway through the grocery store. My grip on the steering wheel started to feel loose. Not painful, just weak. I had trouble opening jars I used to twist off without thinking. One night I stood in the bathroom, toothbrush in hand, and I didn't recognize the posture I was holding, hunched, tired, like my spine was trying to fold in on itself. I looked in the mirror and thought, is this what aging means, a slow surrender? But the moment that really changed everything came in the form of a chair. I had an old wooden chair on the back porch, nothing fancy, just a spot I used to sit in to sip tea in the afternoons. One Sunday after a short walk around the block, I came back and sat down, and when I went to stand, I couldn't. My legs refused. Not in pain, just silence, like the signal got lost somewhere between my brain and my knees. I had to push myself up with both hands on my thighs, and even then I rose with effort. I was only out of breath for a moment, but it scared me in a way I hadn't felt in years. That chair, that quiet, simple chair, had just told me the truth. I was losing strength, slowly, silently. And if I didn't act, it wouldn't stop. Now here's the assumption many people make at this point in life, that this is normal, that weakness is natural, that memory loss, balance issues, low energy, they're just part of the package. And I'll be honest with you, I believed that too. I thought, well, of course I'm slowing down, I'm in my 80s. I figured the best I could do was avoid falling, take my vitamins and keep my expectations low. But then a friend of mine, Roger, 84 at the time, told me something simple. You don't need to reverse time, he said. Just stop letting it pull you without a fight. That stuck with me. I began reading. Not deep science, just the basics. I learned how much muscle the body can lose after 60, up to 3% per year. I learned that most people over 70 don't lose strength because of age alone, but because of underuse. I learned about something called sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, and that it wasn't irreversible. That was the word that caught me, irreversible. Because the story we've been told is that once it's gone, it's gone. That once you slow down, you stay down. But the truth? Your body is waiting. It's waiting for a reason to rebuild, waiting for a reason to engage, and most importantly, waiting for you to decide. So I did. I didn't hire a trainer. I didn't join a gym. I didn't buy a single gadget. I started with breath, movement, light and food. I started with intention. The next morning I walked to that same chair and I stood up from it 5 times in a row, slowly, with effort, but I did it. And the next day again. That was the start. And since then, every small habit has become a brick in the foundation I'm building. Not a fortress to protect me from aging, but a path to walk through it with clarity, with strength, and most importantly, with choice. Because I've learned this. Decline isn't a rule, it's a story. And stories can be rewritten. So, if you've been feeling like your strength is fading, your memory slipping, your energy draining, I want to ask you this. What if that's not the end? What if that's your signal? The body is talking. The question is, are you ready to listen? Most people think healing means adding more medicine, more doctors, more tests, more supplements. But what if healing, real lasting healing, begins by subtracting? That's the shift I made when I turned 85. After that moment with the porch chair, I didn't just want to feel stronger, I wanted to feel cleaner, lighter, more like myself, not the tired version I had grown used to. And I asked myself the hard question, what if the very things I thought were harmless were holding me back? At first I thought I needed to start with action, walk more, eat better, stretch, but something told me to pause, to listen first. I wasn't sick in the traditional sense, no diagnosis, no major pain, but something inside felt clogged, sluggish. And the truth was, I had ignored my own body's signals for years, just pushing through fatigue, dull aches, mental fog, so I began by removing noise, internally and externally. No screens in the first hour of the day, no coffee before water, no eating past 7 p.m, no rushing into chores the second I opened my eyes. It wasn't a rule book, it was an experiment. And what I discovered was this. Healing begins when the body no longer has to fight what we keep doing to it. When I stopped pushing caffeine into an already dehydrated body. When I stopped flooding my evenings with sugar and screens. When I gave my mind 10 minutes of quiet in the morning instead of news headlines. Something beautiful happened. I began to feel space in my chest again. I began sleeping through the night, not always perfectly, but with a kind of steady calm. And in the mornings my mind wasn't racing, it was steady, present. It's not that I became some enlightened monk. I didn't retreat to the mountains. I still had laundry, still had bad knees some days, still had the occasional argument with the toaster. But I stopped blaming age for everything. I started seeing my body as responding, not failing. And that's the biggest shift of all. Most of us spend decades reacting to stress, to pain, to tiredness, to bad news, but we rarely respond with care. We reach for quick comfort, not lasting nourishment. But healing is about creating the right environment. That's when I discovered the term autophagy, a fancy word for your body's natural way of cleaning up, repairing and recycling old broken cells. It turns out your body wants to heal. It's built to heal, it just needs the right conditions. So I changed the way I ate, not what I ate, but when. I gave my digestive system longer windows of rest. I stopped eating late at night. I replaced heavy processed snacks with simple whole foods, nuts, berries, a boiled egg, a bowl of lentils, nothing fancy, and within weeks something changed. My joints felt less puffy, my thoughts felt clearer, my skin even looked brighter in the mirror. Here's what I learned. Energy that once went into processing junk now went into rebuilding me. I wasn't adding more pills, I wasn't chasing new supplements, I was simply stepping out of the way, so my body could do what it already knew how to do. That's when I added the walks. Slow, gentle, barely 15 minutes, but every step felt like an act of trust. I wasn't walking to burn calories, I was walking to circulate life. I breathed deeply, I smiled at trees, I let the sun touch my skin. I wasn't trying to fix myself, I was feeding myself, with breath, movement, silence and light. And here's the crazy part. The more I let go of the noise, late-night snacking, constant media, internal stress, the more energy I had to choose what I wanted to do. I found myself reaching for books again, calling friends, watering my porch herbs, laughing more, and this wasn't magic, it wasn't youth returning, it was me returning, piece by piece. So if you've been feeling like your body is betraying you, maybe the truth is it's just asking you to stop betraying it. Start with quiet. Add breath. Remove what clogs. Restore what connects. And don't ask yourself, how do I fix my health? Ask, what do I need to stop doing that's preventing it from healing? Because healing isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. I didn't grow up thinking of myself as strong. I was more the quiet type. I worked with my hands, yes, but strength to me always meant something outside myself. A big man lifting heavy boxes, a soldier, a runner. But at 86 I began to wonder, what if strength looked different now? What if it wasn't about lifting more, but about falling less? Not about running, but about rising from chairs, from stumbles, from hard days. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I began a strength ritual, not to become a bodybuilder, but to become steady again. Here's what most people get wrong. They think exercise in old age is about intensity. But I learned that consistency always beats intensity, especially after 60. So I designed what I now call my stability sequence. 5 moves, less than 10 minutes, no equipment, just me, my breath, and a chair. It starts like this. First, I stand up and sit back down from a sturdy chair, slowly, without using my hands, 5 times. That's it. Some days it's harder than others, but every time I do it, I'm reminding my legs, you still work, you're still needed. Next, I hold the edge of a countertop and lift my heels slowly off the ground, calf raises, they call them. I call it balance training. It makes stairs less scary. It makes walks steadier. Then I do wall push-ups, not for my chest, for my posture. For the strength in my arms that helps me carry groceries. That lets me pull open the door at the post office without a grunt. Then I stretch my arms, my back, my hips, especially my hips. And finally, the most important part, I stand tall and hold a balanced pose, one leg lifted a few inches, one hand lightly touching a wall. I breathe there for 10 seconds, then switch sides. That's it. But those 10 minutes rebuilt me. I didn't sweat, I didn't struggle, but within weeks I noticed the difference. I could bend to tie my shoes again without holding my breath. I could reach for a glass in the upper cupboard without wobbling. I could get up from the couch without pushing with both hands. You see, the truth is, strength doesn't return all at once. It returns in whispers, in ordinary movements made steady again. And I know what you might be thinking. But I have bad knees. But I'm too tired. But what if I fall? And I understand. I was there. I used to lean on both arms just to rise from a chair. My joints made noises like popcorn, but I didn't push through pain. I moved around it, with respect, because every time I moved gently my body responded, not with speed but with loyalty. Here's something I didn't expect. My confidence grew too. I walked taller, not because I had perfect posture, but because I knew I could trust my body again. And that trust changes how you show up in the world. You stop avoiding curbs. You stop hesitating at steps. You stop fearing the sound of your own feet crossing the room. And yes, science backs this up. A study from the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity found that adults over 70 who practiced chair stands and balance exercises 3 times a week saw a 40% reduction in falls. Another from Harvard Medical School confirmed that even mild strength training improved cognitive performance in older adults. So strength is not just in your muscles, it's in your mind, in your will, in your decision to show up for yourself every morning, even when no one's watching. And if you're still waiting for the right time to start, this is it. You don't need a gym, you don't need special clothes, you need a chair, a wall, a floor, and 10 minutes of care. Because strength at our age isn't about lifting heavy, it's about lifting yourself up from the lies that say you're too old, too late, too far gone. You are none of those things. You are still capable, still responsive, still here, and that's the only starting point you need. You know what's funny? People think the key to more energy is doing more, pushing harder, sleeping less, drinking more coffee. But when I hit my early 80s, I realized the truth is the opposite. Real energy comes when you slow down just enough to hear what your body's been trying to tell you for years. And what mine said was simple. You've lost your rhythm. You see, the modern world is always pulling us into someone else's tempo. News cycles, deadlines, traffic. Even in retirement, we find ourselves rushing to keep up, with expectations, with routines, even with our own guilt for resting. But we were not designed to live on a treadmill. We were designed to live in cycles, in seasons, in rhythm. I had to relearn that, so I did something strange, something I hadn't done since I was a boy. I started listening to the sun, not with my ears but with my habits. I started waking with the sun, going outside when it rose, letting the early light hit my face, and slowly adjusting my meals, movement and rest around the natural arc of the day. What happened surprised me. No more crashing in the afternoon, no more staring at the ceiling at midnight, no more confusion about when to eat, when to rest, when to do. I felt like my body finally had a conductor again, a guide. Here's what I changed. I stopped eating after sunset, not because of a rule, but because my digestion thanked me. I slept deeper. I woke up with less inflammation, less stiffness. I swapped late-night television for a warm shower and 10 minutes of quiet. Sometimes journaling, sometimes stretching, sometimes just breathing with a candle lit. And in the mornings, I stopped starting with noise. No phone, no news, no talking for the first 30 minutes. Just sunlight, breath, and a warm drink. That ritual, repeated daily, became an anchor. It told my body, we're safe, we're in rhythm, let's begin again. Science supports this too. The circadian rhythm, the body's internal clock, governs more than sleep. It affects hormone production, immunity, digestion, even mood. And after 60, that rhythm becomes more fragile, more easily thrown off by artificial light, erratic eating or stress. But the beauty is, it's also resilient if you give it the cues it needs. Sunlight in the morning, movement in the late morning, a larger meal in the afternoon, lighter fare at night, darkness when it's time to rest. These aren't restrictions, they're reminders. And what they reminded me of was this: my body isn't broken, it's just been confused. When I removed the confusion, the exhaustion faded. Not overnight, but steadily, like fog lifting from a field. And there's something deeper here too. Living in rhythm makes you more aware, not just of yourself, but of others. I started noticing things I used to rush past. The smell of herbs on my porch, the birds changing songs as the sun set, the way my mood lifted just from standing barefoot in the grass. That awareness brought gratitude, and gratitude, I found, is the most powerful form of energy there is. You don't need supplements for that, you don't need stimulants, you need space, stillness, simplicity, and a willingness to let your body guide you, not your clock. So if you're tired of being tired, I offer this not as advice but as an invitation. Try rhythm. Try watching the sun instead of your screen. Try resting before you're exhausted. Try eating before you feel faint. Try moving not to burn calories but to keep your inner tides flowing. These aren't grand gestures, they're quiet repairs. They're how I reclaimed my mornings, and with them, my sense of clarity, my ease, my ability to respond to the day instead of react to it. And I believe, no matter your age, no matter your condition, you can restore that rhythm too, not by adding more, but by doing less, with more attention. And when you do, your body will thank you. Not with fireworks, but with steadiness, with balance, with the kind of energy that lets you wake up and say, yes, I can still live today with purpose. And really, isn't that what we're all hoping for? A friend once asked me, do you think it's too late for me to change? She was 76, recently diagnosed with prediabetes, struggling with sleep, and weighed down by more medications than she could name. She looked tired. Tired in the way people do when they've stopped believing they can feel like themselves again. And you know what I told her? No, it's not too late, not because I believe in miracles, but because I believe in the body's memory. You see, our bodies haven't forgotten how to heal. They've just been interrupted. Years of processed food, chronic stress, late nights, skipped movement and emotional pain, they blur the signals. But deep beneath the noise, your body is still trying, still listening, still remembering the rhythm it was made for. And when you give it the smallest sign that you want to come back into alignment, it responds. Not with perfection, but with cooperation. That's what I've seen in myself. That's what I've seen in neighbours, friends, even total strangers who started one small habit and stuck with it. The return to health doesn't happen in leaps. It happens in layers. First, the mind starts to believe again, then the breath becomes steadier, then the body begins to repair itself, quietly, persistently, patiently. And suddenly you wake up one morning and notice you're walking more freely. You're remembering names again. You're waking up rested. You're laughing more. You're here again. That's not magic. That's self-respect made visible in the body. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you gave your body the same patience you give others? When did you last thank it? Not for looking a certain way, but for carrying you this far. Because if you're reading this, you've survived every loss, every ache, every difficult morning so far. That's resilience. That's evidence that something inside you wants to keep going. So maybe it's not about starting some huge wellness plan. Maybe it's about starting to believe again in your body's willingness to meet you halfway. That's what I've discovered in this stage of life. The final lesson, if there is one, is this. You are still the healer you've been waiting for. You don't need perfect genetics. You don't need a full gym, a gourmet kitchen, or a wellness guru. You need to remember that change begins with relationship, with listening instead of punishing, with supporting instead of suppressing, with honoring the body, not just managing it. This is why my habits aren't about extremes. They're about partnership. When I breathe with intention, I'm saying, I trust you. When I drink my warm tonic, I'm saying, I support you. When I walk outside and feel the air, I'm saying, I'm still here, still living. And when I close my eyes at night and visualize a calm, steady version of myself, I'm saying, let's try again tomorrow, together. There is such a myth around aging that it's a decline we must surrender to, but I don't see it that way anymore. Aging is not the end of health. It's the beginning of mastery. It's when you finally slow down enough to know what matters. It's when you realize that 5 small habits practiced daily are more powerful than chasing perfection for decades. And most importantly, it's when you recognize that your life is still yours to shape. So if today feels heavy or the mountain ahead looks too steep, remember this. You don't have to climb it all at once. You just have to take one step, one breath, one choice that honors your future self. Because healing is cumulative. Every morning you rise with intention. Every cup of nourishment you sip, every moment you pause instead of rush, every step you take in alignment with who you want to become, they add up, they build momentum, they carry you forward, not toward youth, but toward vitality. And at 88, I can tell you, there is no greater feeling than knowing you helped write your own health story, page by page. Not because you followed rules, but because you listened. Listen to your breath, listen to your pain, listen to what brings you peace, and finally listen to the quiet voice inside that still says, there's more life left in me. So what do you do next? You begin, not with pressure, not with guilt, but with one kind gesture toward yourself. Start where you are, with what you have, and build forward, because your body remembers. And the more you show up for it, the more it will show up for you. That, my friend, is the real secret. If you followed me through this entire journey, I want to thank you. Not just for your time, but for your presence. Because showing up, truly listening, staying with something from beginning to end, that's rare these days, and it tells me one thing about you. You care. Not just about living longer, but about living better, more aware, more connected, more in tune with yourself. And if that's true, then you're already ahead of where I was at 63, lying on the cold bathroom floor, wondering if it was all downhill from there. I want you to remember this above all else. You don't need to change everything, you just need to change your direction. And sometimes that shift is only one small habit away. So here's what I want you to do, just for today. 1. Pick one of the habits we talked about. Maybe it's breathing with intention in the morning. Maybe it's that warm tonic. Maybe it's stepping outside for 7 quiet minutes. 2, do it with full awareness, not because it's trendy, not because I said so, but because your body deserves it. 3, notice what shifts. It might be subtle, it might be slow, but something will begin to change. And that change is the beginning of something much bigger. And if you do that, just that, you'll already be rebuilding the connection between you and your health. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as partners. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a guru. I'm just a man who chose not to give up when the aches started piling up and the world told me to slow down. I chose to listen, to move, to care, to breathe, to build my way back, not with force, but with respect. And if I could do it after 60, after the falls and the fatigue, you can too. Your story's not done, not even close. There's still room for strength, still time for clarity, still space for healing. So when the sun rises tomorrow, say it out loud if you can. This is my beginning, and let your next chapter be written with courage, breath by breath.